I'd like to call this meeting of the Lammersville Unified School District Board of Trustees to order at 7 o'clock. Just a reminder, this meeting is being recorded. Please turn off or silence your cell phones. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Principal Faubert.
I'm going to invite Grant Herdlicka, our bailiff from our mock trial team, to come lead us in the pledge.
Ready, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Faubert.
All right. Thank you very much for having us here tonight. Before you start your meeting, you'll be glad to know that we've got our Mountain House High School mock trial team, the first year that they have actually gone and competed. They did very well this year, thanks to their wonderful coaches. They don't want to be acknowledged, but I'm going to acknowledge them. McKendra McCoy and Eric Feinstein. We've seen both of these coaches and teachers at our campus for countless hours and on weekends and at retreats and all over the place with these students. And you're going to find out tonight what that hard work, both the students and the coaches, pay off. So without further ado, mock trial team.
I would like to hand out a few things. All rise. Lammersville Unified School District of the State of California, County of San Joaquin, is now in session. Honorable board members presiding, please take your seats and come to order. Please turn off all cell phones and refrain from talking.
Good evening, board members. My name is Raymond Lintu. I am the administrative assistant for the team, as well as the speech and debate team. Before we get started, can we pass the handout? Or did we do that already? Okay, sorry. So what mock trial is, a quick brief is in front of you.
Can you talk in the mic, please?
Okay, sorry. Each year, we have a case presented to us. This year, we have the case in front of you. It involves a human trafficking case, and the charges against the defendant are human trafficking and false imprisonment. The way mock trial works is it's a fully run simulated court. We go to the county courthouse and we have two sides, the defense and prosecution, and we just basically go with the court. These cases start with pretrial, and I'll have them talk about what they do.
Good evening, board members. My name is Zaid Umar, and I presented the pretrial arguments on behalf of the defense in this case.
Good evening, Your Honors. My name is Jacob Ligon, and I presented the pretrial arguments on behalf of the people in this case.
The duties of a pretrial attorney are simple. We bring forth and dispute preliminary matters before an actual court case can begin. These matters can include whether there is an actual issue to be resolved, whether the court has jurisdiction to hear the case, and most importantly, whether certain evidence can be brought into trial. In this matter, the pretrial arguments we were supposed to bring forth were whether an incriminating statement made by the defendant can be allowed into trial. And we based our arguments on whether the Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights of the defendant were violated while the evidence was obtained.
The actual nature of the pretrial of this specific case deals more specifically with the conduct of the arresting officer who did at a point arrest the defendant before the actual arrest was made for the crime that is being charged in the trial. And in this case, as many cases are, the defense and prosecution looked at the evidence and came to two very different conclusions about what actually happened and whether what happened was or was not legal. And in this case, the defense argued that what the officer did was completely unlawful, and the officer acted on a vendetta and did nothing legal in his pursuit of getting an incriminating statement from the defendant. And what the prosecution argued was that, in fact, what the officer did was not only completely legal, but also moral. And because of this, The statement was therefore admissible in court. And at this time, I would like to ask if our trial attorneys would be allowed to introduce themselves.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Christina Peterson, and I was one of the 3 assigned to prosecute the defendant in this case. My job was to prove that the defendant was guilty of human trafficking and false imprisonment of his employee, Lynn Stark, by providing direct and cross-examinations of witnesses and by providing the opening and closing statements for the case.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Ria Dunjal. I was one of the 3 assigned to defend the defendant in this case, Cameron Aubrey. My job was to prove to the judge that my client was not guilty of the charges human trafficking and false imprisonment of his employee, Lynn Stark, by conducting direct and cross-examinations as well as providing opening and closing statements. At this time, may our witnesses please introduce themselves.
They may.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Zachary Lagon, and I played the falsely accused defendant, Cameron Aubrey, in this case. Now, the main point of every witness is to speak on behalf of the prosecution, the people, or the defense to basically see and help the judge come to the conclusion if the defendant is guilty or not guilty. To do this, we are given testimonies that we study and form a sort of persona to help convey our point. So we are essentially actors.
Good evening, board members. My name is Joe Dangtren, and I played Hayden West. Hayden West is a police officer for the fictional Sanibel Police Department, and he was the one that was responsible for arresting the defendant, Cameron Aubrey, which also sparked much of the argument in pretrial.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Jessica Lewis, and I was the prosecution's expert witness, Dana Greyjoy. Now, the job of the expert witness is to use their expertise to provide an expert opinion on the facts and matters of the case. This opinion is fueled through years of education and experience and is there to provide information for the court that cannot be obtained through other witnesses. In this case, I was Dana Greyjoy, a woman who had been working with human trafficking for 20 years, had a bachelor's degree in sociology and a master's degree in social work. I had testified in 27 previous trials, and in this case, I found that human trafficking was occurring and that the defendant was most likely a human trafficker. Now, this opinion is used in court to help assist the judge in the conclusion of the verdict, which is either guilty or non-guilty.
Good evening, members. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Lamia Siddiqui, and in this case, I played the role of the victim, Lynn Stark. I was an immigrant from the country of Tantera who came to the United States in search of a job. I found a job as a head chef under the defendant, Cameron Aubrey, and during this time period, I was verbally abused, paid an immensely small wage, and even falsely imprisoned behind a double-cylinder deadbolt door by the defendant, Cameron Aubrey. Now may our courtroom timer present herself.
She may.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Manri Sohi, and I'm the courtroom clerk. My job is to ensure that both teams stay within a given amount of time, and to do so, I give visual representation at 2 minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds, and both visual and verbal for stop. However, this evening, I will be giving out the artwork of our courtroom artist. May I approach?
You may.
So what she's showing you all tonight is the work of our courtroom artist. Her name is Jiwoo. Basically, her job is to illustrate what happens in the courtroom. Her drawings are just phenomenal. She's actually going she's going to the county team. She actually did really well. At this time, actually, we'd also like to, I'd also like to introduce Paul Washa Khan. She's our courtroom reporter, and she's also going to compete on the county team.
Good evening, your members of the board. My name is Pawasha Khan, and I am a reporter. As a reporter, it is my job to take notes during the trial and later convert these notes into an article. This said 2-page article is then presented to the public to allow them to have a brief understanding of what had happened during the trial. Thank you.
So essentially, that's what we do. As Mr. Faubert stated earlier, we placed really well in our inaugural year. We placed 5th out of, I believe, 12? Yeah, 12 schools around the county, which is fairly, really good for us. Do you guys have any questions for us?
How many hours do you think it took you to prepare for the competition?
So we have 2 tiers, but everyone's conjoined. We have a class that is a period a day. We also have after-school practices that range anywhere between half an hour to 3 hours a day. Those practices were pretty much every day, and the classes every day. So we've been doing this since the start of the school year.
Wow.
So it's a lot of time.
It's a lot of dedication.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
Any other questions?
The court reporter, how much time did they have to do that? Was that during the trial?
Yeah, that was taken over the course of the trial, just the round, so about 2 hours.
So all of that artwork in 2 hours?
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I forgot to say this in the beginning. We'd like to say thank you to Mr. Shane Nielsen. He provided our entire team with T-shirts. It was actually a donation. We're very thankful for that. You guys have anything else? Do you guys have anything else?
I just wanted to mention that I've testified as a witness in court. I was a police officer for 12 years. So I've testified in court hundreds of times, and boy, I wish I had what you've just experienced before I went up on the stand. You don't know how great it is to have that kind of experience, and the first time that you're in court when you're all lawyers, it'll be much easier for you. So good job.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
I commend you all for having the courage to do that. I mean, the number one fear just about is public speaking. And regardless of whether you become attorneys or politicians, the ability to think critically, articulate your thoughts in a clear and concise manner will serve you in anything that you do. And by the way, if you want to go through college, if you actually want to make it through college, you're going to have to do quite a bit of it just to get through college. So, kudos to you guys. I hope to see you continue and do better and more and have fun doing it, because this is great experience and it will serve you well for the rest of your life. Congratulations.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Thank you for the presentation.
That was very impressive. I found it very, very enjoyable. Thank you very much, and congratulations on a very successful year. If you guys would like to hang around and witness this enthralling meeting, you may, or if you'd like to leave at this time, you're welcome to do so. Thank you.
Mr. Faubert, thank you for continuously bringing us such impressive students.
Yeah.
How poised they are. Oh, my goodness.
And a special thank you to the coaches for all that you do to support the program.
Mr. Faubert, I forgot to ask, are most of them seniors, juniors, all grades?
Good evening. I'm Mrs. McCoy, and they're all grades. Oh, sorry.
Wow.
Good evening. So they're all grades. Actually, most of them are freshmen and sophomores. A few are juniors, and a few are seniors. Actually, only 4 were seniors out of the team, and we maintained about 36 on the team because we had backup roles, which were necessities, with multiple conflicts of all the other things that they're involved in, but they were phenomenal. And as far as Jiwoo's work, just to give you a quick heads up, these were practice rounds. Her actual finished product was even more impressive than this, so we're excited about her opportunity to go to state. She's ridiculously talented. Absolutely. Any other questions I can get for you? Because I
Thank you
work with the
so
coolest kids in
much.
the world.
Yeah.
Very,
Come on up.
very proud. Good work.
Yes.
They're amazing, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Matthew Balzerini.
Here.
Colin Clements.
Here.
Ann Goodrich.
Absent.
Sharon Lampel.
Here.
David Pombo.
Here.
Samantha D. Tiberis.
Here.
Approval and/or corrections to the agenda.
There are none.
Move to approve the agenda as presented?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Presentation, middle school next generation science standards.
I'll introduce Director Sherburne to introduce our presenters this evening.
Good evening, trustees, Superintendent Nicholas. It's my pleasure to be here and introduce. We have Katie Charland, one of our great coordinators in the office for curriculum, and with her tonight we have Kim Clegg and Ian Hall. Right? Yes, Ian Hall, who they have been working and participating on the science committee, going through training, working with the San Joaquin County Office of Ed Science staff, the same way that the high school has, that we shared at the last board meeting. And so they want to share the plan that they have been working on coming up with the other middle school teachers. Come on up.
Good evening, trustees, Superintendent Nicholas, and our members of the audience. Just gonna come up here. Tonight we're going to go over the middle school Next Gen Science Transition Plan. We're going to go over briefly what our process has been, what the main shifts are with science going from the 98 standards into Next Gen, and then focusing on discipline-specific versus the integrated model. That's our two options when it comes to middle school science. And then going over what the timeline looks like for the next few years in regards to next-gen science, and then our recommended plan that the committee would like to show. So our process, as Ms. Sherburne has mentioned, is that we have been meeting this year. We had a K-5 committee, a 6-8 committee, and a 9-12 committee. K-5, they really don't have a decision that needs to be made. They're just shifting into next-gen science. But our 6-8 team does have a decision that needed to be made, and that's whether we're going to be going integrated or discipline-specific. And the 9-12 had spoke last week with their shift as well in next-gen science. So in our sessions, we started by just going over what next-generation science is and the shift of, you can kind of see the little graphic. It's a combination of practices with content, what the students really need to know, and then how the students think, how it all ties in with each other. And then they got to really dig into integrated, which is all the subject science areas woven together, versus the discipline specific, which is very similar to what we have, earth science, biology, and so forth. And then they also really looked through the next generation science framework. Again, this is all in the process of being officially stamped and approved as adopted for the framework, but we were looking through the draft framework. And then this group has been amazing. We actually have created a smooth 3-year transition plan to kind of ease our way in, and they're going to share a little bit more about that. And then we are already starting to align the curriculum we currently have to shift it to more next-gen standard-like. And I'm going to move forward with Ian.
All right. Thank you for the heads up. My name's Ian Hall. Thank you for having me this evening. Thankfully, what we're going to be moving into is not really unlike what we're doing now. So as far as from a teaching perspective, it's going to be a very smooth transition. As a teacher, we're going to be thinking and modeling much more, getting rid of some of just the day-to-day grind and let me show you what it has to be and you're going to explain to me and then I'm going to grade you whether you're right or wrong. We're going to be really focusing in on what the kids come up with, because we really want to see a bunch of different ideas. We want to see them coming up with their own ideas and then judging them on whether or not they think it can work and whether they can implement things. So that in that respect, it'll be much different than what we're doing now. But We're really looking for a smooth transition, a lot more lab experience. The ELA component will be much greater than it probably is now. There'll be a lot of compare and contrast, ability to document their thoughts, express that, whether it be through a presentation or working in group projects, much more. I'll let you operate that because I'll break it. Next. Okay, so our recommendation for the NGSS 6 through 8, as we're K through 5 right now, will be integrated, really a smooth transition out of that. CAS testing, which will be live a little bit this year, is kind of a testing program. I think we really have a better flow with integrated versus discipline specific. Kind of like as a teacher, you know, we get paid once a month and I can budget my money once a month for the course of a year. Discipline specific, you're kind of dumping all that money on them one time and hoping they remember it for 3 years. And so I think from a teaching standpoint, parent standpoint especially, they're going to get a little bit of it every year, and it's going to build upon itself and scaffold itself so much more effectively. I think the last thing I really want to talk about is our curriculum. Obviously, we're going to have some curriculum issues moving forward. We're going to be looking for something new. Thankfully, what we have now, we can move around within the grade levels and use what we have now till something else becomes better or affordable or whatever needs to happen. So without further ado, Ms. Clegg.
Please, yes. My name is Mrs. Clegg, and I had the pleasure of being on this and looking at the main concern for many was what kind of transition would we have? That's the big question. This is really, we heard it with Ian, a smooth transition, what we have planned. You know, this year will be our first pilot for CAST, which is important because with the rollout that we've chosen, it's an easy transition between the 2017 and 2018 year where we're still not, it's still a field test before the CAST becomes operational and scores are taken into consideration in the 2018-2019 school year. With our transition right now, we will be fully ready and transitioned by our first operational CAST test. So the results that are recorded then, they will have built up through 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, so they will be prepared for the NGSS CAST test. Right now, what we're doing is a smooth partial shift. 6th grade is shifting first. We're the starting point. What we teach, we're making sure that there is absolutely no holes for any grade level as we transition to be fully operational in a few years. So the shift is going to begin with a partial shift with 6th grade and then move into 7th, and by our fully operational year have transitioned into 8th grade as well. So there will be no holes in curriculum. We will be able to use and work around what we have right now and making sure every grade level is fully supported in the NGSS switch. The biggest thing is making sure that it's not coming all at once. It's gradual steps, not overwhelming, actually very easy, very welcoming, and slow enough implementation that there's no concern, but quick enough that we are ready come operational year of 2018-2019. Thank you. Is there any questions?
I just have a question about the test. Do you know, will the CAST field test be used to set the norms for the 2019 real test that they would get scores for? Just out of curiosity, you might not know.
So far, the only information that we've that we've received is for the pilot test, which is really just testing out the system to see if their type of questions, because they're with the 3 tiers of next generation science, they really have to make sure that they are hitting all 3 areas. So it's to test out the system and make sure it actually does work. But they haven't really released. The county, as they give us information, has been submitting that.
I don't have any other questions. As you were presenting, I was hoping you were going to say your decision was to move towards integrated, and then you said that, and I was like, okay, I'm done.
And that has, for the districts that are shifting right now, it's the most common one. So that's, which when we're looking into curriculum later on, if that's the most common one, that's where most of the companies are going to be putting their effort into, because they're already sitting there building away. Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your hard work on this.
Thank you.
Committee reports. I will start out with the Facilities Committee report. In addition to our usual reports at the facilities meeting, Director of Human Services Ted Miller gave a presentation on a possible job description for an aquatics supervisor. A discussion ensued of what that position might look like and what the responsibilities and roles of that person might be. And that was basically what the meeting consisted of. Trustee Clements, do you have anything further to add?
We did welcome Lisa Boulay as the newest Facilities Committee member, and we also discussed the transition of the committee from the Facility Use Committee to more of a Facility Planning Committee that brings recommendations to the board for approval and such. That was it for me.
Thank you. District Advisory Committee.
Next meeting's on March 27th.
District English Language Advisory Committee.
So we had our DLAC meeting on February 16th at Altamont School. The meeting portion of the evening was about transition from the CELT test of English learners to the new LPAC, English Language Proficiency Assessment for California.
Say that 3 times fast.
Yeah, no. That's the new test that's been adopted.
LPAC.
That's the new test that's been adopted by the state, and so, like everyone else, we are transitioning to that exam. Mrs. Busatil and the elementary assistant principals reviewed the CASP assessment, the LCAP, and offered web links for parent resources. The meeting then moved into our potluck dinner and student performances. The food was incredible.
Especially the baklava.
Especially the baklava. Some of the performances depicted the students' culture, and others were pop songs. It was so much fun. It took a great deal of courage for the children to stand in front of a room full of people and perform. Some of them. Some were hams. They were very cute, and the performances were just fabulous. It was a great evening. And our next meeting will be on May 2nd, when we will acknowledge and celebrate our students who are being reclassified as English language proficient.
Grant Writing Committee.
Well, I have to weigh in on this. It was such a great event. And the reason I mentioned the baklava was because not only did Paula make the baklava, they gave me a whole container of it afterwards. It was awesome. Ginny and I loved it. But such huge kudos to the DLAC committee, and especially you, for planning, because we got business done, we had fun, and we had record-breaking turnout. So thank you so much, Irene Bustatil, for doing that.
If I could add the whole year record-breaking attendance because of the work of the team led by Mrs. Busatil. Fabulous, absolutely fabulous.
Great job.
Ah.
Gate Art and Music Committee.
Didn't you say grant writing first? Okay, which one's next?
Gate.
Gate, okay. Gate. I know I had, there it is. The District Gate Committee, which was held last night, was attended by 6 parents. Director Sherburne reported on the results of the gate testing that was recently completed. 44 fifth grade students were tested, and 24 of them, 6% of the students were tested, were identified as fitting the criteria of gate identification. We had anticipated about 5%, so 6% was right in that area that we expected. Parent notification of the gate test results are being sent to parents with invitations to attend our after-school pilot program for this year's 5th graders. Students and parents will be notified of the start date of March 20th. The after-school program will start with addressing the social-emotional support, rich project-based units, and Spanish classes. Program activities after that will be driven by parent and student interest surveys. The GATE program is not only about programs and activities for our GATE-identified students, but also includes training for our classroom teachers on how to meet the needs of GATE students in the regular classroom. The next step is to test this year's fourth graders, who will be recommended to create the second cohort that will be in fifth grade last year. So fabulous work. Thank you so much, Director Sherburne.
Now the grant writing committee.
Our next grant writing committee meeting is March 8th at 6:30 here in the boardroom. And I know Dr. Gill has made many efforts to solicit participation. We need the help of the community. This committee was started at the request of community members. And now we need them to jump in and help out, because we know there's a lot of skill in this area in the community, and we need that assistance. So again, March 8th, 6:30, right here. I'm looking forward to seeing many community members.
When did you say that meeting was?
March 8th at 6:30, Mr. Pombo.
Thank you. Safety and crisis response.
Our next meeting is on March 15th at 3:30. Between now and then, all the committee members are reviewing the safe school plan to make recommendations. And Dr. Gill, I won't be at that meeting. We have another meeting that I'll be at, so just so you know. Thanks.
Thank you. Wellness Committee, our next Wellness Committee meeting is Wednesday, March 8th at 3:30 right here in the boardroom. Board reports.
Okay, so 2 weekends ago, I had the opportunity to attend a 4-day leadership camp called Rotary Leadership Youth Awards, or RILA. I was the only Mountain House representative at the girls' camp, and when I got there, I expected to have to constantly explain what Mountain House is and where it is at. That was not the case. Although some people had no idea what Mountain House was, many knew Mountain House because of our high school. I was so excited because I got a lot of compliments about our beautiful campus, our amazing sports teams, and our innovative approach to technology. Aside from the compliments I was given for MHHS, I was able to learn a lot about service towards others and promoting positivity and kindness. Personally, my outlook on life has positively transformed, so I plan as an individual to help make Mountain House High School a better place by promoting more kindness on our campus. And then also, I had the opportunity to volunteer at the recruitment fair this past Saturday. I had an amazing time being there, and I also wanted to take notice of the great organization and the amazing turnout that I saw. And that concludes my board report.
Thank you. Trustee Clements?
That was great information, really. That was awesome, and it's good to hear positive feedback. Thank you very much. So I attended Questa's Science Fair presentation night, and of course also the DLAC and Facilities Committee meeting, and which we've already discussed. But the presentation by the mock trial team made me think of a commitment that I had made to myself long ago, which was to try to be, and even before I got on the school board, right? Like this is back in the early days, to try to get an art auction fundraiser, because I attended one. Dublin Unified doesn't do it anymore, but I attended one back in the day, and it was a great event. And the kids, I mean, even kindergartners' artwork was, done. It was just such a great event, and it made a ton of money. And I have been squirreling away, because the biggest challenge to doing an art auction is the framing, because framing is expensive, and getting people to donate frames is a challenge. And I've been squirreling away frames from artwork at model homes forever. My attic is full of frames from those models, because you can't really sell them, and rather than throw them away, I've been taking them and squirreling them away. And I work for a home builder now as well, and they have a warehouse full of artwork from model homes. So I would like to ask the district staff to look into possibly doing a art auction event. And I would be happy to be on the committee to try to make that happen, because I think it would be an incredible event. And knowing parents of Mountain House the way that I do, nobody could overbid them on their own child's artwork. So I think it could be a really good event.
Thank you. Trustee Lampel?
Okay, since our last meeting, I attended the DLAC, which I already reported on. I had the pleasure of attending the boys' basketball playoff game against the Delhi Hawks, which is where I work. It was a great game as the teams were well matched. Our Mustangs pulled out a win in the fourth quarter. Like some of my colleagues, and I know we're going to have a presentation, so I won't talk too much about it, I attended the health fair and recruitment fair on Saturday. Very impressive event, as our student board member has reported on. The level of professionalism was outstanding. Kudos to Mr. Miller and his team for all the hard work they put into planning the events. And as I already reported, I attended the gate meeting last night.
Thank you. Trustee Balzerini.
I spent the day in Sacramento on the 24th at CSBA for the Legislation Committee. We reviewed 36 pieces of legislation regarding youth and education in the state. Having a full-time legislature brings a lot of nonsense, a lot of just crazy bills that was unbelievable. CSBA actually just sent out an email today with all the results from all the legislation, so if you want to take a look at that, it's pretty interesting. I went there, of course, with a mission of AB 163 and 173. I'm happy to report that the author of 163 has pulled it. Good. I've made a lot of phone calls, and I guess their office was receiving a lot of phone calls, and they said that they need to come back to it. 173 is pressing forward. However, CSBA, our committee, went ahead and opposed the bill. So good news there. And also a lot of discussion about Prop 51. CSBA is taking a stand and looking for expedited funding. So more to follow on that for us.
Thank you. And my board report. I attended science fairs at both Cuesta and Altamont. There was a lot of impressive science projects at both, and both seemed to be very well attended. I also, along with Trustee Lampel, was able to go to the boys' basketball playoff game. Very exciting game, very well played, and our boys prevailed over the Delhi team.
Hawks.
Hawks.
The Hawks.
All right. I, along with Trustees Lampel and Goodrich, attended the health fair and recruitment fair at Mountain House High School. The recruitment fair was very well attended. The health fair a little less so, but it was pretty good, pretty well attended also. Everything seemed to go very well, and I'd like to thank all the staff that participated in both the health fair and the recruitment fair. I know a lot of work went into that. There are too many people to list the names of all here, but I would like to give a big thank you to each and every one of them. It was an impressive day. Thank you, and that concludes my...
And where will some of us be on Saturday night, President Pombo?
Aha, yes. The Lammersville School Foundation is having their annual dinner auction on Saturday night, and I think I can still get tickets if anybody is interested in attending, and I am proud to report that the majority of our board will be there. Thank you. Consent items for consideration. Approval of governing board meeting minutes.
Public comment.
Oh, sorry about that. Yes, public comment. I see no blue cards. Is there anyone who would like to speak? Public comment at this time. Seeing none. We'll move on to consent items for consideration. Approval of governing board minutes, budget revisions, approval of contracts under $25,000, Child Development Center for mainstreaming preschool services, $1,400. Central Valley Training Center, Inc., non-public school services, $24,899.37. Staff rehab replacement, LVN, $18,450. Acceptance of resignations, approval of updated 2016-2017 fundraisers, acceptance of donations, $1,000 from Wickland School Foundation towards the Wickland Science Olympiad, and $500 from the Wickland School Foundation towards field trip transportation for Miss Peterson's class.
I'll move for approval of the consent items as presented.
Second.
Wait,
There's updated minutes on the dais, and those will go into the, on the website.
okay, so I will amend my motion to approve the consent items as presented with the amended minutes from February 15th, 2017.
Second.
And those amended minutes will be on the website tomorrow. All in favor? Aye.
I did have one comment, though, which is that Lisa, I've had the pleasure of knowing Lisa Akamichi almost since we moved to Mountain House, and it's been a pleasure knowing her and working with her, and she'll be missed in the district.
Motion carries. District Administrative Report, Superintendent's Report. Dr. Nicholas?
I'd like to have Mr. Miller come up and give a brief presentation on our successful recruitment and community health fair.
Good evening, President Pombo, trustees, Superintendent Nicholas. Thank you very much for having me for a moment, and I believe Dr. Gill will be coming up to join me as well to talk about the health fair. Just a huge thank you, really, to you for your support for our community, for the recruitment fair and for the health fair. This was an outstanding success in many, many ways. As Mr. Pombo pointed out, there are far too many people to thank personally right now for this, and I think that's one of the great things about our community is so many individuals from around the community, not only the district, but the community itself, and outside agencies within the community and outside of the community were involved in this. This was something that, as I have mentioned before, as I've stood here, Dr. Gill set a very high standard and a very high bar. And so quite honestly, I was like a duck on a pond, somewhat calm on the surface, but my feet were going a million miles an hour underneath to hope that I could to live up to this, and not just myself, certainly the team. And I think we did a very nice job. I have to point out that the HR team is really, and the three ladies that make up the HR team, Athena, Jackie, and Rena, they really are the backbone to all of this. I'm just the face in front of it because they did the yeoman's work on all of this, and they really should be here to receive some of the credit for what was done because it really was a fantastic day. What we have are some photos of the day itself. And the smiles that you're going to notice in these photos not only are for the camera, but they're legitimate. It was something of a sight to behold if you were lucky enough to be there, as it's been pointed out. The organization itself, I was quite impressed. And again, this goes back to Dr. Gill's days of doing this and to the team itself in putting this together. What was laid out is one thing, as you know, when you plan for something. There's always something behind the scenes that you need to plan for, the unexpected. And we, fortunate enough, missed out on a lot of the unexpected pieces. Everyone that I spoke to throughout the process, as you see some of our candidates as they line up, nothing but good things to say about the day. It was quite incredible to me when they finally reached me, because I was really the end of the process in some ways. My first question to the candidates when they came in was, how's the process been? And to a person, they all said that they were highly, highly, highly impressed with how smooth it was, the organization, and just the friendliness of what we have to offer here in Lammersville. I got to remember to hit the button. So again, it was a terrific turnout for the recruitment fair. We had many, many other organizations on site that were working through the recruitment fair, including Stanislaus, University of California Stanislaus, National University, Notre Dame, county office was here, Teachers College was here as well to give information, as you see here. That's Brian on the right doing our orientation, and he was just a star doing that. It was so well run. It was just like clockwork, really, when our folks would come in and sit down for their orientation time, and Brian would go over what to expect being part of the family of Lammersville. By the time he finished, our student volunteers were there passing out the next step, and it really, really worked out well. And so, again, some more. This is on the right. That's our interview area where our individuals were waiting for us to come in and meet. And again, it just was a terrific, terrific day of opportunities for all. So, and I believe these are some photos. Would you like to come up, Dr. Gill? These are some photos from the health fair that I believe Dr. Gill could speak to.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Good evening, Governing Board and Dr. Nicholas. Again, I give kudos to Mr. Miller and HR team and everybody else who participated in the recruitment fair. Very well done, very organized. And lots of great candidates that came through. So we're very excited to be able to bring in more employees in the future, teachers especially, to our team. Health fair, on the other hand, was well done as well. Overall, the attendance in recruitment fair and health fair was less as compared to last year because of the number of people who attended in general. That's why, and partially because we did it inside this year. Last year was very cold outside. But one thing that I'm very proud of is with the health fair this year, we didn't only have private organizations, we were able to bring in some really great public organizations from Mountain House and from Tracy, City of Tracy. So we had CSD from here, Relay for Life, Tracy Parks and Recreation, which is huge because we typically don't get those kind of organizations at this kind of event, especially in Mountain House. And we had Tracy Sutter Hospital there, and DARE, and then rest of the organizations that were there were from people's private businesses, along with some food vendors. There were 14 different organizations, lots of gift giveaways, but also information sharing with the people. Wellness Committee has been working on the health fair for a while, but my huge thanks to one person without whom this would not be possible is Jen Lanza. She's amazing. I usually tell her, I say, without you, I would not be able to survive. So she does an amazing job with everything, and this is a perfect example of that. And I also want to take a minute to thank our law enforcement agencies as well. Like last year, this year again, they did a fabulous job. Our sheriff department and fire department were there, and they shared lots of tips with the families on safety, even giving away things, including stickers and helmets and lots of other things. Car seat checks, and it's just amazing. And our teams, especially our maintenance team and custodial team, kudos to them for doing such a fabulous job. Everything was set up perfectly. It was just all in all a perfect day. Thank you. Questions?
It was great. Thank you both
Good
so
job.
much. Yeah.
Very well done. Thank you very much.
I work in San Francisco. I had a lot of people come up to me and say, "Hey, we heard your school district on the radio." So
Yeah,
you got
I
the
heard
message
a lot
out.
of that too.
Well, that's good. That's
yeah.
nice to hear. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I attended later as the event was winding down, almost towards the end at 1 o'clock, and it was still going strong. There were people coming in, and people's energy was high. So great event. I can't even imagine what it must have been like at 8 in the morning or 8:30, whenever it started.
Good evening, Mr. President, board members, Madam Student Trustee. My name is Kirk Nicholas, and I was cut from the mock trial team. So I'm going to try to perform somewhat level discussing.
How many years ago were you cut from the?
No, those young people were very impressive. I I'm always struck by people who speak articulately when they're like 17 years old, because I had trouble not saying and you know and K and all those bad things to do. So with no further ado, it is my pleasure tonight to say to you and bring to you a presentation on updates on our facilities, looking at the broad scope view of our district's challenges to continue to provide excellent schools in the highest performing school district in San Joaquin County. So before I get into the nuts and bolts of the presentation, there are some important terms for the board and the community members to understand. They're inextricably linked to all of the puzzle solving that must be done in order to get a school built and to maintain the program in the community that we reside. So the key terms tonight we're going to talk about is Mello-Roos Tax, Community Facilities District, State Matching Funds, Developer Fees, Shortfall Funding, Mitigation Agreement, Community Master Plan, and the all-important Exhibit B. So Mello-Roos taxes, with a lot of different things attached to us, is simply a mechanism to raise money. And city entities, school districts use it to raise large sums of money to build big projects, including schools. What's important here to note is that the master plan of the community of Mountain House bases its K-8 school funding mechanism on Mello-Roos taxes, which pay for about 75% of our K-8 schools, based on the model that was created in 1998. It's synonymous with the term special tax, and in some instances, depending on how the Community Facilities District is drawn up, if there's additional funds left over, some of those funds could be applied to other projects in the district. The Community Facilities District is simply the mechanism in which the taxes are paid and are moved throughout from the taxpayer to the CFD and out to pay for the projects. We presently have 3 CFDs that are live, 2002, which were responsible for the build of Wickland, Altamont, and Bethany, 2007-1, which was responsible for Cuesta, and the current one, which was passed by this board in June of 2014, in which Hanson Elementary School and the issues in Neighborhood D, which is presently undeveloped. We are in the process of annexing Neighborhood D CFD into the current existing 2014-1 CFD where Hanson will reside. State matching funds, very important. In the master plan, the second funding mechanism to build a neighborhood K-8 school is based on state matching funds. What the 1998 architects were not able to predict was that there would be a time in California history where state matching funds, state construction bonds would not exist. And since 2006, there hadn't been one, and all of those funds from 2006 had been spent. With the voters' approval in November of 2016, with Proposition 51, a new state construction bond passed. So there is now a new funding mechanism to sell bonds to raise money for school construction projects, K-14, for a total of about $9 billion, spread out mostly for new facilities and modernization. It's also important
when it's funded.
When it's funded, we'll get to that. So the voters say yes doesn't mean that the whole process happens like that, which always, of course, delays out paperwork and then therefore money and therefore projects. The other piece that's very important is in order to get state matching funds, there's a long, arduous, very cumbersome process through many different departments to get the money identified and to get on a funding list and then ultimately to get funded. So again, the community master plan's basis for building K-8 schools are Mello-Roos taxes and state matching funds. Developer fees. Developer fees are used for big projects when there is at times a shortfall or to get a project going more rapidly and not having to wait for government strictures to get in the way. So developer fee is a long-term loan. Developer fees are paid back. They get interest on the short-term loan. And they get paid back with interest over the long-term development of a community and the fees that are attached to lots and parcels that are moved over time. So how a developer fee works is important because a significant portion of the funding for the first two phases of Mountain House High School were paid with developer fees. So using a simple mathematical formula, if you had 250 Mountain House lots sold per year, and $5,900 from each lot sold goes towards paying back the developer fees. If, as in the case of Mountain House High School, $52 million were given loaned by the developers to do so, it would take about 32 to 35 years to pay off the entire $52 million. At present, and I'll give kudos to our CBO, Alvina, $7.6 million of the $52 million that were loaned to the district to build the first two phases, or part of the phases of Mountain House High School, have been paid back. Shortfall funding, it sounds good. Difficult to get delivery on, but it is part of the mechanism within all the agreements that if in certain instances, if a project funding, all the efforts have been made to fund a project fall short and the due diligence has been done, there is a process to formally ask developers to kick in developer fees for a project called shortfall funding. It works just like a developer fee. They put money in, they get paid back over a long-term build-out of a project, and they get paid back with interest. It is important, and I put this in bold at the bottom, this is no sure thing. And there are differing opinions of what words mean and sentences mean in the agreements. And there are differing opinions on when this is triggered and how this whole process works. So to say that shortfall funding is a viable means would be not completely telling the full picture, because it comes with a fight and an arm wrestling match, and ultimately isn't the best vehicle to get things funded. So shortfall is an option, but not necessarily the best. The mitigation agreements are the rules. Developers, when they develop a community, have to mitigate the things they do to a community. There are originally two, one with Trimart from 1998 and another with Tracy Unified, as the district was associated with them up until the district unified. There is also a second and third amendment to the original mitigation agreement, but when all else fails and you're not sure what the rules are, you go there and you read it, and that tells you what's supposed to happen. When you bring more than one lawyer into the room and you ask them to interpret the same paragraph, you often get counter points of view, just for full transparency sake. So the Community Master Plan is the be-all, end-all. It is the story that is Mountain House. It came out in 1994. It explains how everything is supposed to work. In some instances, it is a ardent, etched in stone set of expectations, and in some instances, there have been changes, though there's a process that has to go through formal approval at the county to do so. But if you want to know when the lights, what size lights they're supposed to be, the landscaping plans, the village concepts, how the public waterworks work and all that, that's where you go. And finally, Exhibit B. It really, in terms of how it impacts our school district, it's based on student growth population thresholds, and essentially it maps out school builds and how much, in the case of a shortfall, the developers would be responsible for giving to the district and a loan that would be paid back over time using fees with an interest rate. So with all those things said, those all have to be considered each time we do a big project or build a school. So the Community Master Plan in action. As I said, about 2 years ago, the original school is 140 years old. It was built in 1876 when none of these things existed. And so that begins our story. But with the Mountain House portion of this, you have the Wickland Elementary, which was built on a CFD from 2002 and with the help of developer fees. Bethany, Cuesta, and Altamont are all part of a CFD and also with the state matching funds as the master plan rolled out. Mountain House High School Phase 1 and Phase 2, completed in 2014, was based on developer fees, a mitigation agreement with Tracy Unified, and state matching funds. Mountain House High School Phase 3, which is what's going on presently and is anticipated to be totally complete Christmas break 2017 will be paid for by the generous contribution through taxes with Measure L, supported by state matching fees on an older project, which is on the state unfunded list, which Prop 51 should identify here in the next few months. And then finally, Hanson, which is anticipated to be complete and opened in August of 2018, is part of a CFD. There will be state matching funds, but the realities of a 1998 agreement and the present world of 2017 have come to loggerheads, and so a portion of Measure L will be used to support finishing that facility as it was designed. So what we currently have before us now, you have the map of Mountain House, which is split in half because we couldn't fit it all on the screen. So if you look at the diagonal, on the picture on the left, there's a diagonal that runs from the upper left to the bottom right. And you can see the letters K and L, and if you squint your eyes and look for a brown, kind of odd-shaped shield-looking things, there's an I and a J. That is north of Byron Highway, and right above this section right here is I've heard it called the Bridge to Nowhere. It's a lovely bridge, but that will lead people to those neighborhoods. What's important to note presently is that I and J are age-restricted communities, which are not intended to house schools because the people who live in those communities are not going to be producing kids because they have to be a certain age, which typically is beyond the child rearing ages. Not to say that couldn't happen here and there. And then if you look at the K and the L, those are your typical mountain house villages, and those are to house a school. One of the discussions that's occurring right now is that this neighborhood here, J, may be split and into half age-restricted, half traditional, which means that part of J will produce kids. When you produce kids, you have to build schools to house them. The only two presently master plan chosen communities or villages are K and L. So something to consider down the road 3 or 4 years from now is we're going to have to, somewhere that question will be answered, and then there'll be a new question, which is where are the kids going to go to school? On the bottom left, F is Wickland, E is Bethany, G is Altamont, H is Cuesta. Now, if you look to the right, you have C and D. This is the picture on the right. And then you have this oddly shaped dog, we call the dog ears right here in yellow. So C is the site for Hanson Elementary. The large rectangular portion over here in neighborhood D is the high school plant, which is 46 acres. And then the site of a would-be school in neighborhood D. And then finally, I finish our tour. Down here, this is considered to be neighborhoods A and B. A on the left here, and B on the right there. So at full build-out, all of these schools will be built, these villages will be built, and each time you build a school, it comes with a story. So that's just kind of a quick tour of where the community master plan has defined the village concept and the schools. So this is a rendering of Hanson Elementary School. It's called Modern Prairie Architectural Design, and that's what we hope to break ground in the coming days to do. So we have a challenge with Hanson that is solvable, but will require patience and good planning and strong recommendations and a visionary board, as has always been the case here in Mountain House and Lammersville Unified. So our intention is to break ground in April. I put here maybe May. Late this afternoon, it looks like we'll be bringing forward a recommendation after interviews for a contractor and a contractor contract on May 3rd. So as soon as April is looking more like early May, it is what it is, but that's still moving along. It takes about 15 to 18 months to build a school. That still keeps us in our opening of August 2018 window. But I do need to say to the board and to the community, we are in the process of, and we will continue to, we're running out of room in our schools. So Alvina and Noel have been doing a comprehensive, let's look at exactly where we stand in terms of numbers so we can kind of predict when that would happen. Prop 51, it's very exciting, and as Trustee Balzerini pointed out, just because the state elector votes for a big state construction bond doesn't mean that it just immediately shows up. There have been some state politics that have been thrown into the situation, and there will be some bureaucratic changes that will create some short delays. The single most important one being the State Allocation Board was directed by the governor to come up with new policies and procedures and an auditing process. And I can announce as of today, the State Allocation Board meeting for this month was canceled. And so the next time they will meet is in April. Why is that important to us? Because they're the people who are going to, the allocation board part is the allocating of the money that's in Proposition 51. We have two sums of money, what we will apply for at Hanson, and a group money that the state has owed us for about 4 years now, we call the ultimate match. So it appears that Mello-Roos taxes are another piece that is a challenge for us. And so what we've been doing is looking at neighborhoods D and C in terms of what would be a process to gather Mello-Roos taxes to fund Hanson. Right now, there's developed and undeveloped properties. Developed properties sell more bonds at a higher price than undeveloped. So we had an absorption study done, which is a person coming in and predicting how a community is going to build out as a means to give fact-based data to bond purchasers so that they can buy the higher priced bonds to fund the highest amount of money we can get from Mello-Roos. Why is that important? It's going to more than likely force us to do 2 bond sales as opposed to if it were fully developed, we would do 1. And then finally, Measure L's intention was not to fully subsidize or substantially pay for Hanson. The plan for Measure L was to sprinkle a little bit of Measure L into Hanson to make sure it got done to the same quality as our other schools. So the effectiveness of the mitigation agreement today. Neighborhood D is the test case. Presently, the plan is to begin building homes in Neighborhood D this year. There are 2 developers who are moving rapidly to do so. The representatives of CalPERS, which is Mountain House Developers, and a subsidiary company called IHP, and the developer Jerry Camilos. CalPERS is the responsible party for about 60% of Neighborhood D, which resides in the western portion of Neighborhood D, and then Camilos, who owns the lion's share of the eastern portion, which is about 40% of the same village. Here's the reality. 1998 mitigation agreement subsidized by the rules in Exhibit B has collapsed on itself. The funding mechanism and modern costs for projects such as building a K-8 school at the quality and level that the master plan expects with the design specifications directed to the district, they don't match anymore. So that leaves us in a difficult situation, which is that you cannot build something when you don't have the money to do it. So the reality is the Mello-Roos taxes and the state matching funds as designed in the master plan for Neighborhood D will not generate the kind of money needed to build a school and will be short by $10 million or more dollars. The other challenge is we've done our part. We went out to the community. The community did its part. They chose to tax themselves to help raise money to support to Hanson on a small level and to help finish building Mountain House High School and other projects for the district over time. This can't be done for Neighborhood D. The mitigation agreements, the challenges between differing historical developers and their parts of the agreement make it really impossible to do another GEO bond. So that's going to put Neighborhood D school in a state of flux. And it is important to note that a GEO bond for modernization is still a possibility, but one to fund the building of a new school and the way the rules are set up in the master plan and mitigation agreement, again, puts a Neighborhood D school in a state of flux. The other thing we need to be worried about, and this is really very, very real, is the cost escalations are astronomical. The best example I can give, when we went out to bid on the resources needed to build Phase 3 of the high school, The wall products, the drywall and gypsum and all the stuff they call it, only one person bid because everybody else was too busy and already had business. They bid on that. It came in 2 to 3 times higher than what we thought it would. So we did what common sense would dictate, which is go out and get more competitors because competition drives the price down. So they went out and they bid, and I think it was 6 people came back with a bid price. All of them were extraordinarily higher than the one that came in 2 to 3 times higher, and the guy that came in with that raised his price. So it is a contractor's market, which is why I want to thank our partners with Turner and NMR, because we are moving along rapidly to get the buildings done at the high school. So another factor that has to be considered when we're looking at schools, not only in Hanson, but future projects in the south of Grant Line Road and across the Byron Highway. So finally, the Neighborhood D dilemma was actually kind of thought about back in 2005. There are 2 portions of the master plan. It's called Specific Plan 2 and Specific Plan 3. Section 5 of those portions of the plan really already split up Neighborhood D. It's written in there that we may move kids from that neighborhood into other neighborhood schools if, in fact, there isn't a school in D. Previous boards and the previous superintendent made the determination that if this were to become a factor for the school district to deal with in the future, the choice was made that Hanson would be a 2-story school in case another wing had to be put there to house students. So with all of that good planning, the reality is that that may be the new way things are going to have to be looked at, that the scope, size, and scale of our schools will be larger, that the expectation in Specific Plan 2 and 3 that we have to review student generation numbers, that we have to prove to ourselves and essentially prove to the developers that these neighborhoods over time, 20 or 30 years, will continue to produce children at the same rate that they are now, has all been really kind of put into the master plan, kind of hidden in plain sight, that it may not be tenable to build a school in every one of these villages. So we are in discussions with representatives of CalPERS about what Mountain House will look like in 20 years and what are these neighborhoods and the inhabitants' age going to be as the community ages. Will people still of child-producing ages continue to buy houses, or will kids grow up, leave house, and mom and dad stay put? So those are all challenges. They're all written out in these agreements. They're all things that have to be considered when recommendations come to the board. So I wrote the title of this slide on purpose: How to Deal with Today's Reality and Yesterday's Mitigation Agreement. So we are presently reviewing the size, scope, and scale of our schools to full build-out, to really look at what this is going to be, how fast is this going to go. I can tell you based on the absorption study that the expert that was hired to do that, in the next 5 years, a lot of houses are going to be built, and I can predict that if this person is right, that C&D will be, if not all built out, mostly built out, similar to where Cuesta is right now. I can tell you in conversations with Mr. Camilos that he plans to begin work south of Grant Line in Neighborhood A. So as soon as we get this Hanson thing going, we'll be talking about what are we going to do about schools in neighborhoods A and B. So it's not going to stop. It's going to keep going, and this is a cycle that appears to be about a 5-year run out. So as I said earlier, in Specific Plan 2 and 3, and it's really important to note that in 2005, when the developer submitted this and it was approved at the county, that the consideration of challenges in Neighborhood D were real, and a solution of splitting it and having kids go to different places, Hanson, neighborhood AB, neighborhood schools in AB, is a reality. So that's where we're at in the discussions. We are preparing right now because we have identified the monies to fund Hanson, but we don't have access due to politics on one end and the need for more houses to be built to sell Mello-Roos taxes on developed property, that we may have to consider a 2-phase build-out which won't necessarily delay or cause any problems for families, other than the cost escalation of having to stage something twice for Hanson. So those are some things that are not done deals, but very serious considerations, all driven by the master plan, mitigation agreements, politics of California government, Proposition 51, and the lack of a state construction bond from 2006 to 2016. So if you go back and look at this map again, if you look to the right, this is the site of Hanson. If you notice, there's one section that's white and one section that is colored. The reality is, based on specific Plan 2, is that it's possible for the kids in this colored section D to attend school over here in C. It's also written in specific Plan 3 that for the kids who live here, they can go to school down here in AB. This map long predates my tenure here. This is my 4th year in the district. So this has been a long-standing understanding of challenges down the road. And if you notice how they're not even, the one section's not colored, it tells you how it's kind of broken up in people's minds. So we will make the right decisions. We'll make the right recommendations. We will work with whomever we need to work with to figure it out. But this is the process of a master plan community. And finally, just getting into the last phases here, a quick update. Mountain House High School Phase 1 and Phase 2, these are renderings that kind of show the school. In 2014, we finished the Phase 1 and Phase 2 with an admin building, multi-use room gym, and then the sports fields, stadium, classroom wing. And those, again, were funded by developer fees, a long-term loan with interest paid back, mitigation agreement, and state matching funds. Mountain House Phase 3 is currently being built and will be funded through Measure L primarily, and some money that is on the state unfunded list, but will be the first monies we get from the state when they get their new processes done sometime this year. And the theater, library, aquatic center, let me correct myself, the theater, the Learning Commons, used to be known as a library, aquatic center, career technical ed, and tennis courts are currently being built. So this is a couple of weeks ago. The theater is already about, it's 20 foot tall in some instances, and I was told today one portion is going to be 40 feet tall. But that's essentially classrooms to the left and the beginning of the slope that goes for the seats, and the stage to the left, a rendering. This is the inside of the main section of the library, looking out to the quad, the Learning Commons. This is the Learning Commons from rendering on the inside. This is the Aquatic Center, all moving along beautifully well.
Nature wanted to fill for
Other
us.
nature was going to fill it for us. I was told today there'll be water in it in May, but there has to be a curing time. And so sometime, hopefully mid-June, when we work out all the facilities use stuff, that will be turned over to us. That's a hope. It looks like that's going to be the reality. An old rendering. The career technical ed building, if you look today, it's significantly taller. And the tennis courts, which we have currently have Mustangs whacking balls out there as we speak. So those turned out beautiful. All right, so this is my final 2 slides. So we are finishing the final phases of applying for state matching funds for Hanson. We have a couple of small things to work out with the developers, but there is no process to apply, so our plan of action is to submit the application even though there's not a process, so it's already there when they decide what they want to do. Proactive, I believe, is the term. We are looking at every possible means to get funding. So we already have money on the unfunded list, what we call the Altamont match. We will be getting state matching funds for Hanson probably in late 2018, early 2019. We're investigating a concept called land sale, which could increase the amount of state matching funds. And we are currently challenging the California Department of Education to identify learning spaces as classrooms to increase state matching funds there for Phase 3. We are already, as I said, identifying a contractor, and we are working with CalPERS to address today's challenges and so we can solve tomorrow's school funding needs. And that is the conclusion of my presentation. Any questions?
I have a question about the possibility of kids from D going to schools in other neighborhoods, and that would be transporting or getting those kids from their neighborhood to the adjoining neighborhood across busy streets.
So the conversation would go down to what's written in the mitigation agreements and whether or not there would be some ways to safely have the developers build something to get them either across Central or Grant Line. The other option would be that the district would provide the transportation for, in a limited area, moving the kids across Central and south of Grant Line. That'll be a whole nother round of arguing and debating and doing it. But that will be one factor. I did read, and I want to confirm this with our contract attorney, but it does appear that there is some language in specific Plan 3 that indicates that Delta College would be required to pay for transportation for students in A and B, but that didn't make any sense to me, so I have to get more information. But that is another factor.
So I wonder, piggybacking on that idea, if something could go over, I don't know who would pay for it, over one of the busy streets, like the walkover that the Ripon High Schools,
Right.
the two Ripon High Schools have, that goes all the way over 99, so the kids from one side of the freeway can get to the high school on the other side. Something across one of our busy streets would be much simpler, but I don't know who would pay for it.
My experience is if it's not written in the mitigation as a have to, then the fingers are going to point to the district because the students are our responsibility. However, in some instances, through raw, sheer determination, past and present, with board support, we have won some arguments and lost others.
Mm-hmm.
I typically like to ask clarifying questions for people watching. I guess my message would be: look, the board and the district lives this on a day-to-day basis. There's no way I can ask enough questions. If you have questions, you're just gonna have to call the district office.
Right. Or they're readily available to take a look at the specific plans. It's pretty clear.
Yeah.
They read a lot better when you're looking for it. Like if you're looking for something, like you're looking for a definition in a dictionary, you go and you find it and you read it and you're clear on what the word is. If you try to read a dictionary, it's tedious and cumbersome. That's kind of how these agreements go, that when you're looking for something specific and you need it clear and clarified, that's the reality of these agreements.
I have a lot to say. I've been living this. I moved to Mountain House almost 13 years ago, and I believe in the master plan. I believe the then master developer had a dream and wanted to see the dream come to fruition. And since then, they sold out to a new developer who just doesn't care. All they want to do is build houses and get out. That's my personal opinion. That's what I've watched over these last few years. In regards to Prop 51, you mentioned state politics. We have a governor that doesn't like education. He wants our community to have to pay for our school sites. And we have an agreement with these developers that was written in the 90s and could not even take into account what we're dealing with today, not to mention that a funding mechanism that hasn't kept up. This board has had experts come and tell us straight up the Marshall-Swift Index does not keep up with inflation. And because of that, the prices that we're being held to are ridiculous. We can't build schools for the amount of money that we've been allocated to do it. And for the developer to make comments that we've overbuilt the schools, I laugh. I just think it's one of the most ridiculous statements I've ever heard. They've made comments that we're overbuilding and we're adding all the stuff that we don't need. And I say, how about those design standards that you provided that you make us follow? How about the technology that we're leading the pack, that we're doing great things, that is selling homes in this community? They won't acknowledge that. For the developer to say, we gave you $56 million to build that high school, when, as we just saw in this presentation, that they absolutely did not give us the money. It's a loan that we pay interest on. In regards to Neighborhood D, as I mentioned, I feel passionately that we should build according to the master plan. Part of that master plan said that the school is the heart of the community and everything is built around the school. How do we all of a sudden, or how does a developer all of a sudden just say, nah, not that neighborhood. That neighborhood doesn't get a school. I think it's wrong. I think that as board members, as elected officials in this community, we have an obligation to represent the people that don't even live here yet, that will live here, and the students that are going to be going to school. Our students that are going to have to cross a major arterial, which is a violation of the master plan, which is a violation of the mitigation agreement, and put these kids in danger. I wasn't aware that language was added to SB 2 and 3. I got on the board, the elementary board, in 2006. I was on the CSD board in 2008 and came back to the unified board in 2010. All of that time, I never realized that language had been added. I almost feel like it was hidden from us, from elected officials, from both boards that I served on. I was never aware of that. It's great that they have this plan for students in half the community to go to school in A and B. My question is this: when are those schools going to be developed? We don't have a mitigation agreement for those neighborhoods. How on earth are we going to make a plan for students to attend there when there's no idea when that's going to come? What happens when they build homes in D and then we're going to be negatively impacted in the rest of our sites? That school in Hanson will fill up rapidly with the students that are identified in half that neighborhood already. I'm sorry, the master plan calls for a school in D. We should have a school in D. I know these are ongoing conversations, and I'm well aware that the developer is not as responsive as I would like to see. I've asked many times for the developer to come and speak before this board, and they refuse. And I'm very disappointed that they have that kind of attitude. But this current developer does not care about this community.
I agree with everything that Trustee Balzerini said, and I just want to piggyback on something that he touched on, and that is the design standards. Those design standards escalated the cost of this building that we're sitting in by nearly double. We had a perfectly adequate design for a building, and when we took it to the county and took it to the CSD, they said no to this and no to that and no to the next thing, and the end result was we spent twice as much money on this building as we needed to because of those design standards, and they've done the same thing to every school we've built out here, is made the cost of those buildings much higher than they needed to be. And which is fine if there's a mechanism to pay for that. But that mechanism does not exist, so we end up trying to figure out, well, how do we pay for those champagne and caviar buildings on the beer and crackers budget that we're given?
Yeah, I mean, what you mentioned about this building, a perfect example. They made us build this building to fit the design standards of Town Center, which now the current developers come in and changed all those standards. So it's not going to match Town Center anyway. One more question I had for you, Dr. Nicholas, is the absorption study. Who made that? Is that something that we requested?
That was something we requested.
And I guess my follow-up question is going to be, will the developer believe the findings that are given to us, and will they make any modifications based on that?
Well, I don't know the answer to that. The purpose of the absorption study was to give our bond representatives evidence to show people who would buy bonds that would pay for the Mello-Roos taxes a projection on why it was a good investment. Not that we couldn't use the absorption study as a means to show that this is going to be a rapidly growing community. It's certainly ours, so we could use it in a conversation negotiation.
Well, and I guess my message to this community would be, everyone better get involved and let our governor know that communities like ours we need to have this state funding continue, these state bonds continue, because if we don't, we're going to have to pay for it ourselves. And
Correct.
I'm using my position with CSBA to try and get that message across, but boy, it would be nice to have help.
The reality is that school funding, the way that it's been done in the past, is essentially the equivalent of a Ponzi scheme. You issue bonds, and LA builds their schools, and San Francisco builds their schools, and Dublin builds their schools, and everybody in the state is paying for those bonds that helped those communities build their schools. Our residents are paying for the bonds that helped all of those other school districts build their schools. And then the governor comes in and says, no, that's not the right way to go about it. Communities should build their own schools. So what he's really saying is, Mountain House, Lammersville, you should pay your share of everybody else's schools, and you should pay for 100% of your schools because you're the last community in the door. It's not fair. It's not right. There is not a community in the world that could have built their own schools without any help. That's the whole point of bonds.
And as Trustee Belzerini asks the community to get involved and to email the governor is not on the Mountain House Facebook page. You need to contact.
He's not?
No, he's not. You need to contact the governor. Talking about it on Facebook and giving other people information so they can contact the governor is great, but it has to go beyond our Facebook page.
He has gotten locked into this idea of local control, and so we are the losers on the block grant local control funding formula side, and absolutely all small communities. And again, most districts are especially in the Central Valley, are over 100 years old, and we're there for farming or railroad, and modernization is their bailiwick, and they're gonna, he wants everybody to raise their own taxes on themselves, and it's not with the cost of the way things are today. It's unbelievable how fast the costs are going up.
And our community is taxed out. You talk to people,
right.
They want to help, but a lot of them say, we just can't handle any more taxes.
Right.
In the beginning of your presentation, you mentioned Exhibit B, but never really clarified what it serves.
So there's student population thresholds that are triggers for when schools can be built, and then there's also things that it creates a rate for how much money in a shortfall circumstance should be put forward, and the one that we have is based on 1998, but that does get amortized, somebody say amortized, because that was easy to say. Did I tell you I got cut from the mock trial team? So that growing thing called amortization, when it's applied, so it does. But it does. The reality is if you're given an engine that can go 65 miles an hour and you expect to go 100, you're going to go 65 miles an hour. And this district's been going more than 65 miles an hour on that engine for a long time. So Exhibit B was probably in '98 made a lot of sense because costs weren't that intense, but just in the last 5 years alone, just gotten out of control.
Yeah, the construction costs are astronomical, and we need to revisit Exhibit B. We need the developer to come to the table. We need to revisit that and look at a different funding mechanism because the current one just does not work.
And I can say that is they're open to that dialogue in terms of looking at modernizing the mitigation agreements. So I think it's all going to go on the table, but at the end of the day, people are moving in. We're growing by about 15 kids a month, give or take, and we're going to be building a school, and no matter how it gets built, when one phase or two, the kids are going to keep coming because we don't miss an opportunity to let people know how proud we are of the work of our teachers and our staff and our students and our community, and we are the #1 performing school district in San Joaquin County, and people are going to keep coming for it.
Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments by the board?
Thank you very much, Dr. Nicholas, for the report.
Thank you.
Action items. Item A, oh, you're right. I got ahead of myself. District Maintenance and Operations Report, Mr. LeGrand.
No tie.
Thank you for not skipping me.
You're very welcome.
Good evening. Thanks for having me here. I'm afraid I have start off with some bad news in my report. The last piece of the puzzle for the Mountain House High School girls' locker room was the air handler unit on the girls up on the roof. We fired it up on Tuesday. It ran the rest of the week with no issues. I got a call Monday morning, same unit, same problem, flooding issue. So the good news is we caught it quicker than we did last time, so the damage isn't extensive, but there was water damage again in the ceiling. So the unit was shut off. Turner was very proactive, got over there quickly. They called in, there's a factory engineer flying in tomorrow. He'll be on site at the high school tomorrow to try and troubleshoot, find out what's going on, what's wrong with the unit. So none of us are happy about it, but it is what it is. We're trying to work through it. So last week I spent pretty much the whole week with Keenan, our insurance company. We walked every site. We went into every custodial closet, every science room, every art room in the whole district. And we completed our site chemical inventory for the whole district. It was a very, very long week for me, but it's all done. So that's good news. As you heard earlier, the job fair was on Saturday. I want to publicly thank a few members of my staff that were very helpful on Friday, Saturday, and some helped both days. From Mountain House High School, Mayor and Cartier and Juan, Steve from Lammersville, Ray and Albert from Wickland, and Tomas from Altamont. So I really appreciate their help. So we got there Friday. We had a lot of work to do, and we knocked it out in about 3 hours. And I think everyone was surprised we got it all done. I think they were expecting to show up Sunday on Saturday morning and have, not ready to go, but we were ready to go. I attended the Mountain House construction meeting today. As you saw from the pictures, going very well, despite the weather. And lastly, a meeting on Friday with IES, our HVAC contractor. Avita and I are concerned because our costs are higher than normal. In some cases, double what we spent last year. So we're trying to get to the bottom of what's going on with that. So that concludes my report, and I'll answer any questions.
Thank you.
Any update on Altamont?
I was in the room yesterday. There's no moisture on the floor. And the Montessori? Yeah. Montessori group's going to go back in there and start using it again. And then I'm working with Wes and Mr. Yeager on what kind of material to put back in the room, whether it be carpet, BCT, vinyl, whatever they want. So that'll be upcoming too.
Oh, Wes has also been directed to contact the person that does the oversight on the construction and start to review documents and pictures and to see if there's something we can discover about the actual cause of the problem.
So
Did they actually do moisture testing to see how much moisture really was coming through?
Yes, they did. I haven't seen those results. And I also did some other testing on my own, and I'll have those results tomorrow for other things other than moisture. So, and my understanding, they did moisture testing initially and put the flooring in, and it was high, and they changed the glucon they used and that kind of stuff. So they have some other results to compare to. So,
thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Thank you, and I appreciate that we have our architect looking into the issue because, again, as was stated in a previous meeting, it seems like there's got to be something wrong there.
Mm-hmm.
Now we'll move on to action items. Item A, consider approval of 2016-2017 intra-district transfer requests.
Move to approve 2016-2017 intra-district transfer requests.
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consider approval of 2017-2018 outgoing inter-district transfer requests.
Move to approve 2017-2018 outgoing inter-district transfer requests.
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item C, consider approval of Governing Board Resolution 161715 to adopt a written debt management policy. Staff report?
So this is a new process from a new state law directed by our bond counsel, that this is part of what we have to do to get in our Hansen process.
So I had a very simple question on this. There's a policy attached to it. Is this a formal policy? Because it didn't have like a BP number.
So I was trying to take a look and review those, and with the timing of trying to get this passed with the CFD coming on board, there is one through CSBA that has a board policy, and I'm sure we'll be bringing that forward. But I made sure to compare it that this addresses everything that needs to be addressed. So there
So
will
we
be
can-
you're correct, there will be a board policy.
So we can approve it as
Yes.
is and then just assign a number
Yes,
to it
and usually
later.
CSBA sometimes recommends legal counsel look at it. Well, this is coming from our bond counsel,
Yeah,
so.
okay.
I was
just
comfortable with it.
curious because it didn't have
I did
a
the
number.
same
I've never
thing.
seen anything like that
Correct.
before. Okay,
Timing.
yeah.
Move to approve Governing Board Resolution 161715 to adopt a written debt management policy.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Roll call, please.
Matthew Balzerini.
Aye.
Colin Clements.
Aye.
Ann Goodrich.
Absent.
Sharon Lampel.
Aye.
David Pombo.
Aye. Motion carries. Item D, consider approval of 2015-2016 certification of corrective action for and audit finding corrective action. Staff report?
So in an audit process, a couple of bad practices at 2 elementary schools were identified. This is the way we correct those things, and our CBO has worked with staff to make sure that practices have improved.
So I have a very brief comment. While Ms. Kaiser is not accustomed to having findings in the audit, I wanted to let the board and the public know that 0 findings, which is what we're used to, is unusual. And these findings in our report are actually quite typical and easy to fix.
We're getting bigger.
We're getting bigger, and you don't have as tight control as to what's going on the sites. And student accounts are the most typical place where there are findings. And the auditors are around to help us and to make those corrections. So there's something in here, and it's hard for me to toggle back and forth between my comments and the thing. When are the site monitoring forms completed? Because that part was blank and I didn't
This is something new that we've established, and it's actually a form that I obtained from someone who does this full-time at Manteca School District. So I took this form and I actually sat with Mr. Yeager and with Lindsay Webb to review each of these questions that apply to them, things that they hadn't thought about. So I usually will do also a site visit, and so this will now be implemented during my site visits to make sure that they stay on the same practices, because sometimes they don't think of everything, and it's difficult, and sometimes I assume they know exactly how things are to be done.
They don't think like you do.
No, I did sit with Lindsay Webb. She was outstanding and followed through. She did it the Vena way, as I call it, and she was very pleased that I showed her some examples of how it would pass an audit versus not.
So that's an internal form. It's not something that's mandated in the
No, it is
correction
not.
process. It's something, okay, so then there's really no answer. You use that on an as-needed
Yes.
basis. Got it.
Move to approve 2015-16 certification of corrective action form and audit finding corrective action form.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item E, consider approval to adopt updated board policies and administrative regulations. Staff report?
This is just the second step of our 2-step process. So we brought these forward info and discussion 2 weeks ago, and now they're formally ready to approve.
And for the record, these are all mandates.
I believe that they're all mandates, yes.
Thank you.
Move to approve.
Wait. Okay, we can have discussion after. Go ahead.
Move to approve adopt updated board policies and administrative regulations.
Second.
Further discussion?
Yes, please. In 6146.1 on the high school graduation requirements, on page 111, the section on the high school exit exam. The high school exit exam doesn't exist. So, page 111. So I don't know if CSBA is telling us we have to leave that in there, but that's been outlawed.
Right now, the law is a law to postpone the high school exit exam. It hasn't been repealed yet. So it's still in the books, and it's postponed till the end of the year 2018 to give the state time to get their act together and make a law to repeal it. So it's not officially repealed, which is why we haven't taken it out yet.
Okay.
As soon as a law comes out to officially repeal it, we'll take that portion out. It'll have to come back, but we can't take it off because it hasn't been repealed yet.
Okay.
Even though we know we're not taking it.
Something new. Okay, then my other comments are really a moot point, because page 112 talks about the retroactive diplomas, so that part was updated because of, I forgot it was a delay, not a total repeal. So, yeah, so, thank you.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to item 12, calendar. Calendar's there, Wednesday, March 8th, Wellness Committee meeting. Also on the 8th, Grant Writing Committee meeting. March 15th is the next regular Governing Board meeting. Also the Safety Committee meeting. March 21st is a Facilities meeting, and March 27th is the District Advisory Committee meeting.
I will move to adjourn to closed session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are now adjourned to closed session, where we will be discussing public employee discipline dismissal, release complaint, pupil personnel, conference with labor negotiators, conference with legal counsel, conference with real property negotiators. Thank you very much.
What?
Okay, we are live, I believe. Can you do a test?
Testing.
Okay. So Dave, you gotta call it back.
Or are we just recording sound?
I did what I was told to do.
No, we haven't, it's okay.
It should be working.
We haven't had that picture thing.
Noel's computer is working.
Okay. There it is. It's on.
Call this meeting back into session at 10:13 p.m. The following actions were taken in closed session. During closed session held earlier tonight on a motion by Trustee Balzerini and seconded by Trustee Lampel, the board adopted a resolution pursuant to Education Code 44929.21 and authorized the superintendent and/or his designee to notify certain certificated employees of their release from his or her probationary positions by the following vote: 4 ayes, no noes, and 1 absent. Also in closed session, item B, pupil personnel, Education Code 35146 and 48918. The board took action pursuant to Education Code 48915A1C and 48900C on the motion by Board Member Balzerini and seconded by Trustee Lampel to approve the expulsion for case number 1617, number 4 by the following vote. 4 ayes, no noes, and 1 absent. And that is it.
I move we adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are now adjourned.